message.
Hi Hugo, this is TGV calling. I'm just leaving you another message. I don't know if you got the last one, but please call me. I really need to get that Daniel Wellington watch
That
review.
bloody chav.
In my opinion, movement watches are better than Rolex.
Oh my God.
Hugo, please call me when you get this message, okay? This is the 5th message I've left you. I need to know what's going on with that Daniel Wellington review.
I won't cry. I won't cry. No, I won't shed a tear. Just as long as you stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me.
Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Very special video today because sorry, I feel like a child again. I'm just so excited. But yes, the Catalina has arrived. It's finally landed. Well, actually, to be honest, I received it more than a week ago. I didn't do an unboxing because it was personally hand delivered by my good friend John at Watch Gauge. Shout out to you, my friend. So that is today's wristwatch check. It's everything I wanted. It's everything I expected it to be, and more. I'm chuffed to bits if you can't tell. But yeah, I'll just show you the box because I didn't even know that NTH were gonna adorn the box. It does come on the bracelet. I haven't even sized the bracelet yet. That's how excited I am. I will do that later. I've lost my Burgeon tool. I think somebody's stolen it. So I will be announcing the winners of the competition, which to give away the prototypes, hopefully in the next video, so stay tuned for that. I'm wearing it on my Lucky Zulu at the moment. The engraving on the back is just spectacular. The thinness, a 300-meter water resistant aviation watch. Who would have thought it? I love the case. That, of course, I've got to give credit to Chris Vale, NTH, for coming up with the original case in the first place, which, as you guys know, broke records at being such a slender diving watch. But now, the Catalina, actually got to give another shout out to my good friend Ricardo for giving me this fantastic book about the historic plane. PBY Catalina was greatly used by the British, the Americans, the Canadian Air Force. Flying boat that spotted the enemy fleet at the Battle of Midway, and tons of amazing stories. I'll add this to the Amazon shop. It's an excellent book. Thank you, Ricardo, again for that. But anyway, back to the watch. So yeah, the loom is amazing. I'm not going to review it because, well, as you can probably guess, it would just be totally unfair. It will just be me going on about how marvelous it is. Chuffed to bits. I mean, look at that. Look at that. Oh. Anyway, today we are doing an unboxing, a Tudor watch. Now, I should give a little bit of kind of pretext to why I bought this watch. As you guys know, I did my 7 top grail videos, and one of my favorite watches, if not the favorite watch of all time, there it is the Rolex Explorer. And I'm fiending for a 1016, the vintage, earlier model to mine. Unfortunately, they cost an absolute ruddy fortune. I don't have that kind of DuckTales money to spend. If I did, I'd snap it up. But actually, to be honest, for a simple three-hander, I think the price is a little bit ridiculous. And then I spotted the Ranger. I remembered the Ranger. Now, I did own a Ranger in the early days of the channel. I think it was the reference 74000, basically a Prince date, but with the Ranger dial. So I thought, well, some of the older Tudor Rangers, and I love Tudor, you know, for me, Tudor is a little bit more special because it has that kind of link to England with the Tudor Rose, of course, and I spotted this one and I just thought, yeah, let me get it in to review. However, once I did a little bit of research, I uncovered a bit of an uncomfortable truth, shall we say, about the Rangers. And this is a really interesting time for the brand. The late 50s, the late 60s was when Tudor was trying to break away from the shadow of its bigger brother Rolex. So before I get to the unboxing, let's discuss 5 models from Tudor that illustrate this point, what Tudor were trying to do, more controversial Tudor models, and then we'll come back, we'll do the unboxing. The Tudor Ranger is one of the brand's most cherished models and represents, in my opinion, along with 4 other legendary and largely overlooked watches, something of a turning point for the brand. Before the snowflake hands found their way into the Submariners in '69 and the vibrant pizzazz of the Monte Carlo chronographs in the 70s, the late 50s and 60s is when Tudor changed from a mere affordable alternative of Rolex that Hans Wilsdorf originally intended into something with its own distinct watches and, most importantly, its own unique identity. So what are these 5 watches I speak of? Well, the first is the 1955 Oyster Prince Tuxedo dial, the reference 7950, made famous again more recently by it being included in Mad Men. It had contrasting, almost polar route-esque inner and outer sections of the dial. It was in a 35mm size. The black section of the dial was enameled paint and divided into 4 sections by crosshairs. It was surrounded by a metal insert with guilloche decorations. Now, I must also mention there is an extremely rare version with numerals too that is absolutely to die for, and again with just the 3 hands and no date. The second watch is the 1957 Tudor Advisor with the reference 7926. This 34mm watch featured an alarm and is one of the brand's most atypical models, and the only one in its history to offer an alarm function, which was indicated and set by a 4th almost GMT-like hand. The third watch is the Tudor Royal 8533. This was a minuscule 13mm ladies' dress watch in 9-carat gold. The fourth watch was a manual wind known as the Oyster Thin, which was released in 1957 with the reference 7960. This was the thinnest watch Tudor ever made at only 6mm thick and is one of the rarest models, produced only for a short time in 1957 to 1963. It went down in watchmaking history as being one of the thinnest waterproof wristwatches and remains one of Tudor's most sought after by collectors. The fifth and final watch we're going to talk about is the Ranger, of course, and by which I mean the 1967 Tudor Oyster Prince Ranger reference 7995. The Ranger represented the brand's take on a classical time-only sports or tool watch, you could say, with smaller sizes around 34mm, resilient waterproof oyster cases, and a simple dial configurations designed for legibility. The series at the time was handsome, but sadly not unique in a market at the time. Undeniably, it was the brand's equivalent to the Rolex Explorer, but deviated not only in name but in style. The reference 7995 had a black dial with rose logo, punctuated with luminous rectangular hour markers and a luminous Arabic numerals at the 3, 6, 9 and 12. The 12, unlike the arrow of the Explorer. It featured characteristically shaped arrow, or some say pear-shaped hands for the hours, and a syringe style for the seconds. These also had luminous material. Its self-winding movement was the ETA caliber 2483 with the signature Tudor Auto prints on the rotor. The screw-down caseback was engraved Montre Tudor SA Geneva, Switzerland, patented. It came with an oyster star bracelet with folded links and a Rolex signed clasp and crown. Now, if we compare to the Tudor subs of the time, with the exception of some very slight details and branding, they pretty much looked the same as their Rolex counterparts. The Ranger was clearly something a little different, and then evolved further in subsequent years by adding a date complication as well. But this is where things get really tricky. The history of the Tudor Ranger is one of the brand's most confused, erroneously documented, generally mysterious, and often argued about. This is made all the worse by the Ranger being one of the brand's most faked watches, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But let's rewind to the roots of the Ranger. In fact, everything starts with a story similar to the Rolex Explorer. As you know by my numerous videos on the subject of my favorite Rolex, the Explorer was not the watch worn by Hillary and Norgay on Everest. They brought with them the reference 6093, what's known as the pre-Explorer, which was an Oyster Perpetual, which then evolved into the Explorer we all know and love today after that expedition. For Tudor, the same kind of story can be told. The Tudor Ranger, in its known shape, with the Arabic numerals and black dial, etc., was not the watch worn for exploration. However, it was created after Tudor experienced some of its watches in extreme difficult conditions in the early 50s. Great Britain missioned 30 military and civilian scientists to explore Greenland. The British North Greenland Expedition, known as the BNGE, were equipped with 26 non-modified Tudor Oyster Princes, references 7809. These 26 watches faced harsh conditions at base camp, where scientists recorded some of the lowest temperatures ever, minus 66 Celsius, and went up to 77 degrees north latitude. Hans Wilsdorf knew already the power of marketing, and just like he did with the Rolex Explorer and Everest exploration, Tudor used the BNGE as promotion for the brand and issued ads titled "The Tudor Oyster Prince Roughs It in Greenland." The problem is that the Ranger was not a specific reference in the collection, but shared serial numbers with other non-Explorer-like editions, such as the standard Oyster Prince watches. In fact, these watches were the same, just differentiated by the dial and the hands. Thus, there were multiple references allowed for the Ranger, such as the 7964, the 7966, the 7990, the 7992, and it goes on and on. It's only in the 1980s that the Tudor Ranger became a model of its own, and this was with references 9330 and 9220, depending on the presence of date or not. And finally, the Tudor was discontinued in 1988. So fast forward to the 1970s, the Tudor Ranger 2 was introduced with the reference 9111, and this had an integrated bracelet, a larger 38mm size, and was unequivocally the inspiration for the much later modern North flag. And talking of much later, let's fast forward to the major rejuvenation and relaunch of the brand in 2011. The Ranger finally got a contemporary update in the form of the Heritage Ranger in 2014 with the reference M79910. This featured a dramatically larger 41mm case, and also interestingly with a red second hand and the rose returning to the dial. So where does the Red Ranger fit in all of this? And is it real? Does it even exist? Is it merely a myth? The debate has lasted for many, many years, and there's no doubt it will continue. From what I found out on the internet, there are anecdotal stories of Rolex authorized dealers claiming they've sold them many, many years ago, and even prominent collectors that are adamant they've seen honest examples from original owners. So why would somebody deliberately paint the word Ranger red? Well, my best bet is to cash in on the red sub hype. If you remember the reference 1680 that had Submariner in red was something of a phenomenon and was highly desired, mainly due to its rarity, and resulted in it being heavily faked, especially on eBay. Now, of course, there are tons of obvious fakes, but I guess the only way to really find out is to take a look at one and get on with the unboxing. Okay, so here we are. Now, I apologize about the rather unglamorous background. It's just that this box is so large, I'm using the the bigger of my light boxes to try to get it in the frame. Anyway, quick knife watch check. Knife watch check. What am I talking about? Quick knife check. It's the Benchmark or the Benchmade. I can never remember which one is it. Oh, it's Benchmade, but I call it Benchmark. Who cares? So that is my knife check. Anyway, let's get into it. Oh, I didn't do drum roll. My God, I almost forgot. There it is. There it is. One of the most infamous watches from Tudor. Right, if this tag is removed, I cannot return it. Right, well, we can at least have a look at it, can't we? We can at least have a look at it. Because it's all about that dial. All about that dial. Wow, it's definitely a tropical dial. So it's starting to turn blue there. Really patinaed hands. Slower sweep there, so... And we have the date in red. That Cyclops doesn't line up. That's not a good sign. So the crystal has probably been replaced. The little Rolex crown there. Period correct case back. The condition's not bad at all. Hasn't been over polished. Bubble, the very pronounced crystal there. Because this is when Rolex still signed them on the clasp. Anyway, let's move those hands. Actually, let me move the light so we can see a bit better. Let's just move that. There we go. Because we're going to really get in there. If it is painted, it's the best redial I've ever seen. The Tudor rose there looks immaculate. That's definitely genuine. I think the loom markings is genuine as well. The fact that it's turning blue is believable. I mean, it actually on camera it looks very, very blue. Off camera it looks more black. A bit of a weird or telltale sign is that magnifier is off slightly. But let's look at that Ranger. The distance between the characters is correct. That's something that they often get wrong in fakes. The hands are definitely genuine. They've patinaed a little bit more than the markers on the dial. So that I've seen that before. That is possible. The dial is definitely, the markers and all the rest of it is definitely original. It's just the big question of that red Ranger. Let's pop it on. Because we can still pop it on. I just can't remove that tag. I mean, for me, look at that. It's wonderful for me. But I've got to decide whether I can live with the fact that it's possibly a Franken, or it could just be one of the rarest Tudors ever in existence, and it's the real McCoy. I'm not sure. I don't know what to do. I'm going to give it 24 hours. But everything else in the watch, I mean, obviously I'm going to test it for accuracy and all the rest of it. Tempted almost to open it up. Might take it to my watchmaker. It is absolutely gorgeous. That's without a doubt. Let's just quickly bring in my Explorer, just to give you an idea. There you go. Look at that. So only a flick, smidgen smaller. A gorgeous little watch, but I really don't know what to do. Let's take it back to the studio. Okay, so the big question is, well, am I going to keep it? And I've decided not to. There were just too many variables at play here. And to be honest, it's a big chunk of my AP Grail savings that I just don't want to risk. It's a lot of money. I paid about $3,000 for this Tudor. And actually, to be honest, if it was $3,000 or $30, it doesn't really matter. I just don't want to risk that money. But having said that, there is some valuable lessons to take away from this experience. First of all, like I've said several times, there is no better education than experience. And I wanted to get my hands on it. After doing the research, I couldn't find a definitive answer if the red Ranger even exists. There was such a conflicted opinions on forums and online. Some people are absolutely adamant that it doesn't exist. Then you have reputable sellers like the people I bought this one off that were selling it happily, which I don't know. I'm so conflicted about it. The ones I have seen online that have the rose on the dial and a date with the Cyclops were also a little bit dodgy. So I couldn't confirm if this model actually even existed. And I think ultimately what I take away from this, and I've said this before, but it is a really valuable lesson to learn from, is that if there's ever any doubt, especially with brands like Rolex and Tudor that are heavily fate, it's best not to risk it at all. Because if I decide to resell it and I further down the line discover it is a Franken watch or it is fate, I essentially, selling it on, I become part of the it's selling essentially an illegal good. It's it's not a straight fake, it's that kind of middle ground where it's perhaps been changed a little bit, but I just don't want that risk. This goes for any luxury watch brand. If there's even 1% doubt, and in this case it was more than 1% because there were a few things that didn't sit quite right with me, but that's the crucial thing. If there is an element of doubt in there, send it back. Just send it back. Make sure that seller has got a strong return policy. Anyway, I've done a whole video on 10 questions you must ask before buying a watch online, all the rest of it. So have a look back. It's just too much money for me to risk and, to satisfy an itch, essentially. But it was fun discovering and learning about Tudor, this interesting period of Tudor overlooked, to be honest. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very, very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, found it useful, and as always, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.
This is a public service reminder for the good gentry. Please follow us on Instagram, join the Facebook UGWC group, and click on the bell to keep notified of new videos. Don't forget to keep it positive, keep it gentry, onwards and upwards. Thank you.